Yo, what's good, everybody? Welcome back to the Celtics Chronicle. Today, I'm joined by two-time NBA All-Star, one-time All-NBA defensive second team, Mr. Roy Hibbert. Played for the Pacers, played for the Hornets. If I remember, you were working with the Sixers as a player development coach for a few years as well. Like this is
Yeah,
man, you were one of my favorite players growing up, so I'm fanboying a little bit right now. But thank you for jumping on with me, man.
I appreciate it, man, and I'm a fan of yours, and hopefully you could have some fun breaking down some basketball, talking basketball.
Yeah, for sure. So I want to jump straight in. The Pacers, we'll start with the Pacers. They've been out of the playoffs for a few years at this point. They bounce back. You have a good series. You make it through to the Knicks. How are you feeling about your former team? What are you seeing that you like? What are you concerned about?
Well, what I like about my Pacers are obviously the first time they've made it to the second round in over 11 years. Since I played there with Paul George and David West and Lance Stevenson. So it's nice to see them get there. They've constructed a good team that plays fast, up and down. They get up and down the court. Halliburton is a great point guard who facilitates, who can make some great passes. And it started off with him and then Miles Turner, he's been able to shoot inside and out, stretch the floor. At the beginning of his career, I felt that he had more of an inside presence, banging in the post, but I've been relying on the three-point shooting just because of the offense. But he could still get down low. But yeah, this team is playing well. Unfortunately, as of today, they lost the first game against a very tough Knicks.
Former Celtics on that Pacers team, Aaron Nesmith. How are you feeling about what he's been able to show? I feel like he's gone on from being like a end of bench type of over enthusiastic talent to being a core piece in Rick Carlisle's rotation. How do you feel about his just overall defensive intensity and his 3-point shooting?
I mean, whenever you play, you need to have like glue guys, rotational guys that know their position, and he knows that defense is what I primarily have to come in to do to make my bones. And then obviously, he can get out on the break. He had a really tough dunk last night against the Knicks at the rim, but I like him. And like people coming up should realize, you may not be the superstar of a team, but you could be a glue guy. Look at last round Bobby Portis. I feel like he's one of the best, rotational glue guys. Not a big time scorer, but can score in the paint. He can hit threes. He plays defense. So Naismith could be like that, eventually.
I like with Nesmith, like he came into the NBA, he's behind Jason Tatum, behind Jalen Brown, showed some defensive upside. I remember one of the main discussion points I had at the time was, hey, this dude came in as a sharpshooting prospect and he's turning into like a 3-and-D wing, like your prototypical guy. And now
Yeah.
he's found himself in a position where there's more minutes available and he's with other young guys. You mentioned Halliburton, Benedict Matherin's there. So there's a bunch of young guys that he can grow with, right? And this is just a much better situation for him. Do you feel like
I
this
think it
series
is.
against the Knicks?
Sorry, go ahead. You go finish. Finish, sorry.
Sorry. I was going to say, do you feel like this series against the Knicks is going to be more of a learning series than it is them actually trying to get to the conference finals?
I honestly, in my heart, I hope that they win this series, get to the Eastern Conference Finals. But I feel that they have a better chance after a full summer together. Let them go through the fire right now. Hopefully they win, get to the Eastern Conference Finals, and then whatever happens, happens. But let them go through the fire. A good summer with Siakam and these guys together working out, whether that's in Indiana or a lot of guys go to LA to work out together. They build that camaraderie, have a good full like 2-3 months at the beginning of the season to work out, fine tune lineups for for the future. But I want them to win, but I don't think this year is the year. Hopefully it is, but I think that they can get out. At least next year will be a little bit more strong. I think they'll be competing with Boston for the top two next year.
And that's where they've been building, right? And they have all the talent there to have an all-star or two all-stars on that roster next year. But as you say,
Yeah,
the aim is to compete with Boston. And if you come out of this series, that's who you're going to face. The big bad wolf of the Eastern Conference right now. They're coming
yeah.
into their first game against the Cleveland Cavaliers tonight. Obviously, we're not really sure where Jarrett Allen is health-wise at the beginning of the
Yeah.
series. Boston are without Porzingis. Mitchell looked a little bit banged up in that game 7-2. But if we just imagine that everybody's healthy right now, and as a former like all NBA defensive guy yourself, one of my biggest questions coming into this series is if Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley are on the floor, without Porzingis, how do you try and stop that rim running of Allen along with the floor spacing of Mobley in the corner?
So Mobley could spread the floor, but I feel like, at least, Porzingis does, like he can guard, defend. I said in my video, he creates space. He makes people shoot over him. He doesn't give up a lot of drive-bys and everything like that. But, that's the thing that I'm worried about is just like Al Horford, let's just say, just just having to deal with these younger guys who can move and be able to shoot. Bam Adebayo, that last game. Um, I hope I'm answering your question, but against Miami, when Porzingis wasn't there, he went off. He had some real good situations. So I'm a little worried about the backside defense of without Porzingis there. But sorry, ask that question again. I may have
No,
went
I
off
mean
topic
you.
there.
No, you were taking me exactly where we needed to go. So it's you've got Allen as your rim runner playing the 5. You've
Yeah,
got Mobley as the 4 in the weak side corner, spacing the floor.
yeah,
You have Garland
mhm,
and Mitchell above the break, and then you'll have
yeah.
Okoro or Struce on the wing or in one of the corners or on the slot,
Hitting
wherever they
threes.
want to play as your
Yeah,
catch and shoot guy. But if you're running a single big lineup, so you've got Al Horford at the 5, Tatum at the
yeah,
4, Brown at the 3,
yeah.
Derrick and Drew at the 1 and 2. How do you defend that double big when you've got Mobley in the corner spreading you out, but you've got the explosiveness of Allen in transition?
Man, if that four is able to hit those threes, it's gonna definitely change the dynamics because it depends on who's the first, the rim runner to the basket. I say Al gets it, and then you have, let's say, Tatum guarding the 4. I feel like it's going to put a lot of pressure on that backside because I don't feel that Tatum or Brown are going to want to come off their man to come help, especially if he's hitting corner threes. So I would just have to say, you know what, you know, you see what does the Cavs shoot from the in fast break points? This depends on if they put pressure in the fast break to get buckets at the rim, then guys or get threes in transition, then guys are hesitant to help out. If Garland drives to the basket, then you're going to get those lob opportunities right there. But again, you just have to see how much they get out on the break.
My bad. I've got percentage of
Yeah.
fast break points. So the Cavs are 11th in the NBA. They shoot 13.1% of their offense comes from fast break scoring. So
Okay.
that puts them
And they get
11th.
out to run a
Austin,
little. Yeah. So I feel like they're just going to have to sprint back. Um, to probably load the paint up a little bit, make the 4-man hit the threes in the corner. And I don't want Garland getting to the basket. I don't want Mitchell getting to the basket, putting pressure on Tillman and Cornette and Horford right there. So I want them to like at least make them have to back it out. Maybe they cut down on those fast break points, if anything. Maybe don't send too many. Send one person to the offensive board, get everybody back.
the other
That's
option
probably
that
too rudimentary. But that's what I could pull up on the spot.
no, I mean it's good. I am putting you on the spot. One of
Yeah.
the ideas that I'm throwing out there at the moment, and I'd love to get your opinion on this, is the Celtics have been cross matching a bunch. So they'll put like a Drew Holiday or a Derek White on a big, so that
Yeah.
when the pick and roll occurs, you're switching
They
that guard on,
switch.
and now your pickup point for the roller is high, so you can tag him around the elbow or at the high
Yeah.
block, and you're taking away the penetration off the dribble. But when you've
Yeah.
got Mobley still on the weak side and he's 7 foot that can shoot off the catch, is that a worthwhile kind of like something to try out? Do you give it a shot or do you kind of stay away from it because you don't want to be force feeding a 7 foot catch and shoot guy in the corner?
I mean, I like the percentages. When I played, I said, you know what, let me, when I had situations where I looked at LeBron's podcast where he was breaking down how he had guys run the fast break. And they had a clip of me on there. And it actually made me like look silly because he was talking about how most bigs run to the middle of the court, but he had Chris Bosh running the lane, getting to the 3-point line. So that put me in a position where I was out of sorts because I would want to help at the basket if a drive happened, if LeBron drives, but now I have to stay because he's a hot shooter. So I feel like, you know, be there to help, and let's just see what Mobley does from the three. If he starts to hit one, this is exactly what coaches say in the huddle. If he hits one or two, then we'll like adjust, and then maybe we at the point of the screen or in the fast break we lay off a little bit so the corners don't have to help as much.
Yeah, and most of the time, what Mobley's trying to do there is he doesn't really want to shoot, right? Like he wants to cut baseline, he wants to pressure you with that, like
Yeah,
those ghosts towards the rim, but he's there just to space the floor. That's been one of my
yeah,
biggest concerns, just dealing with the size, right? I feel like without Porzingis there, you have two choices, and it's you stick with your standard rotation and just keep Horford at the five, or you
yeah.
sacrifice one of your guards and then inject Luke Cornett there to kind of match up size for size, but then you lose the perimeter defense that you get from having Drew and Derek.
I like the way that they're doing. Like the offense is just too good in terms of like what you guys are doing on the other end. Don't sacrifice the offense for a little bit of defense. Now I see like a Joker in Denver will like give up a layup and he's just like inbounding that thing quickly as hell. So it's like the defense isn't that much of a factor anymore. So I say whatever you can do to keep the defense, to keep the offense going. Same thing I feel like with the Pacers. They're giving a lot at the rim, but at the same time, a part of me is like, but at the same time, you don't want to draft another 7-footer or a big guy like myself who would slow down the offense on the other end. So,
On the other end, one of the big developments for me this year was Peyton Pritchard Nash dribbling, just coming under the
yeah,
rim, taking it back out. And I know
yeah,
some people kind of view this as, hey, you've drove to the rim, but you haven't taken a layup. Instead, you've come back under. You've created
yeah,
a secondary chance, but you've slowed the offense down. What does
yeah.
that? What sort of position does that put a big man in, especially more of a rim protector, where you have a quick guard that's like Nash dribbling under the rim and then creating off shovel passes or whatever?
So, from my personal experience, I had to learn the hard way. I remember playing against what's his name? He got traded from Miami to Philly. He went to the University of Villanova. He could shoot threes. The point guard. He
This
played
season,
for the
Carl
Toronto.
Lowry.
No, Kyle Lowry. Yeah, to play against Kyle Lowry. He would come off that pick and roll, and then we would have a thing called a paint switch. If George Hill gets stuck on the screen at the top, the 1-5 pick and roll, and if George can see Kyle Lowry's numbers, his back of his numbers, it's a paint switch. So as Lowry would dribble baseline, and I'm defending, ready to block, as a guard, as a big, sometimes I put my hand on his hip to guide him up. And as soon as you put that hand right there, he's flopping out of bounds and stuff like that. So for me, that's the first thing I had to learn. Hands up at the rim. Don't let them hook you to spin it. So you still have to be on guard. But as soon as they dribble out that baseline, that's a switch. A lot of the times they say for the guards, we used to work on this in practice. If there's a paint switch, you dribble the ball, you throw it to your teammate and throw it right back, and you just go full speed at the big man, because they're going to be like slow foot. So either the big man has to either deny that pass, let the guard go backdoor, hope that you have your teammates behind you at the rim to listen for that backdoor pass, or you try to stay in front as best as you can. So like that's just that just is a sequence of things that goes through my mind when that paint switch happens. Protect the basket, if he snakes it or dribbles under the basket like Steve Nash, have your hands up. Be wary of the hook, so because you don't want to be a footer who defends the rim and then let somebody score on you like that. And as they dribble out, give space a little bit. If they pitch it, they throw it and throw it back. You gotta be ready to guard. Either you're gonna deny or you got to be able to move your feet and everything like that. So what he's doing there is great as long as they don't over dribbles. As long Pritchard does a good job of like attacking, getting the ball out, and then the Celtics obviously, do a good job of taking advantage of whatever mismatches they have there on the backside.
One of the reasons that me and you started speaking was I reached out to you after you released a YouTube video of the Celtics defense, right? And you focused primarily on Jason and Jalen and their post defense. And I want to touch on that in a moment. But
Mhm.
as somebody that's been in the league and you've played with one of the best wings in the NBA right now, and who has been one of
Yeah.
the best wings for a while in Paul George, what have you seen development wise from Jalen and Jason in terms of how they've become these all-star and like borderline superstar guys, but also become very different type of offensive weapons?
Well, what I like with Brown is especially during when he had Tyler Hero on him, he has no problem hitting that corner three, but like he has like one cool spin baseline. He spins baseline, goes up for that two-handed dunk, and I feel like he's done that several times on Tyler Hero and like stared back at him in a while. So he has like the inside outside presence, and obviously in the video I talked about how he plays both sides of the court. Maybe not locked in like 24/7. Is he going to be a defensive player of the year? No, but I like what I see from players. I've had go-to players on my teams before. I hate to name names, but like you can go to my rookie year and see who are the top scorers on that team, and then you can just see, on the other end of the court, they weren't giving us anything, So I really respect players that bring it on both ends of the court. Now, are they going to get a stop every time? No, but at the same time, as a teammate who sees, let's say PG shoots the ball 25 times a game, rightfully so. But at the same time, I'm not going to get mad at him when I see him, locking down, trying to get a defensive stop, and carrying on both sides of the court. So I really respect those type of players, and Boston has that. Now Tatum, obviously he has a range, can shoot. Sometimes I think he takes a couple fadeaways when he doesn't have to. He can keep attacking the basket, but those two guys take the space. I like that.
And when you're talking about playing that defensive side, right? So for me, one of the best indicators of where you kind of need to develop or where your development has taken you has been that two-way, because it's very easy to look at offense and be like, this guy's a stud, he's a star, but he's
Yeah,
he's he's a turnstile on defense. And if you've got a guy that's scoring 24 but giving up 22, where he's only a +2 in terms of positive return on investment, it doesn't make
yeah,
sense for me to define him as a star. And that's
yeah,
one of the reasons where the Celtics have been so dominant, is their two best players are also two of their better defenders. And this goes into
yeah,
that video you were talking about, where you were talking about their post defense. You gave some really nice pieces of information in terms of like your foot position, how your foot needs to be just above the post up player's foot, so you can stop
yeah,
that turning into you. The amount of
yeah.
dribbles you take is a good indication. So this video came out, and I'm going to link the video in the description and in the article that comes with this. But the video that came out, it came out before the series, and you were kind of
Mhm.
asking how good will their post defense be during this series, because it could be a factor. Now that the
Yeah.
series is over, how do you feel that post defense went? Was it as expected? Did they exceed expectations?
Well, with Miami, they didn't really have, I guess, to say post threat besides Bam and say Jaime Jaquez from time to time. But I'm interested to see, like you said, with Mobley being able to score inside and out for the most part, and then Allen is more of like a lob threat, duck in threat. So that's why I feel like I'm maybe shading away from the question, but like that's where I feel like, just to get this point out, they'll be okay without Porzingis here because there is no dominant, like, let's just say, like a Joel or a Bam who can, like, create on his own, let's just say. So that's why I feel like Boston can get out of this situation. But again, I trailed off again and I forgot the question. Um, yes, hit me again. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I was saying, their post defense. Do you feel like it's
Yeah.
exceeding expectations, or throughout the season? If we want to remove the small sample size of just the Miami
Yeah.
series, like, do you feel like those two guys have developed in their post defense?
I think it has. I think it has throughout the season. I went through clips from the beginning of the season till when that video was posted, and I feel like they built a good foundation of just being able to, like, know why. I look at these clips, and sometimes when they give, Jason Tatum doesn't contest or he lets somebody back him down, they're up by 20 points in the third quarter. So as a player, I'm just like, all right, I know how it goes. Sometimes guys take possessions off, but they've built a good foundation that when they do go up against, let's say they get out of this round and they play my Pacers, or in the conference finals or whatever, and Pascal Siakam likes a post. I think I highlighted a couple of Siakam's post ups right there. Those guys, I think, are going to take the challenge right there and try to get those stops right there. So for me, it's always building a good foundation.
A minute ago, towards the start of this, you mentioned how you'd like to see the Pacers progress into that conference finals. Obviously, part
Mhm.
of that's it's a team you played for. Part of that is it's a young team that are learning, and one of the best ways to learn is to keep going through this process until you run up
Mhm.
against a monster that stops you going any further. Who do you feel like could give Boston more problems just in terms of all around offense and defense between the Knicks, who are heavily reliant on Brunson offensively, but have this stellar defense, or the Pacers that play at a much quicker pace and are a bit more versatile offensively, but don't have as much defensive stability outside of Siakam?
I think I look at the Pacers, and looking at it through the lens, like you said, of the Celtics, I think the Celtics would rather play, um, I would say, Indiana. I feel like because of the fact that they like to get up and down the court and don't really worry too much about defense. In terms of the Knicks, you know, Thibodeau plays 7 players and he wears them down. Maybe I'm worried about the longevity of the Knicks with only playing 7 players with Tibbs, but he has those guys locked in, and I feel like Harrelstein, I believe his name, and the big guy off the bench. Defensively, I feel like they are a little bit more of a presence defensively, as to say.
Do you feel like you could come back into the league and do well? Do you feel like you
Hell no.
can?
Hell no. I was a player development associate. I wanted to learn how to be a coach after I retired. I took 2 years off and retired, and then I went to go work for the 76ers. And I worked with Joel in the post, and he would hit me sometimes in practice. Like he's just going through drills, normal things that I used to do to the coaches when I played. And then I couldn't move my neck for like a week, man. I don't know how I used to do that back in the day. So I'm good. I'm good. It's a young man's game. Zach Edey's up next.
You think Zach Edey? So here's a question for you. I wrote an article
Yeah.
about this. I'd like to share it with you after this recording.
Yeah.
And it's based on how there's a world where you can live as a non-shooting big man in the modern NBA by modeling your game on being a perimeter screen setter and
Yeah.
knowing how to manipulate defenses on the perimeter by slipping screens, by rolling, via
Yeah.
screening, and all these different actions that you can do. And I kind of used Luke Cornett as like a model example of this. Just, hey,
Yeah.
here's a 7-foot guy that's great at containing the pick and roll, can protect the rim, doesn't shoot on offense, but gives you so much other stuff that he's a positive addition to any roster.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
How do you think Edey is that the type of way you'd see Edey going while he tries to develop a perimeter shot, if he tries to
So
develop?
so I'll say this. I'm gonna try to stay on track. So Edey's right here. So I called a bunch of games for college color analyst. So I got to know some players. There's a guy name is Neil Quinn. He's a senior. He's graduating. He asked me, like, does he think that I can get to do things in the NBA? And I called his game twice. Good player. I sent him film of Cornette, just saying, like, literally, you run, you set screens, you have good hands. You move your feet. You can play in this league. This guy's like 6'10", 6'11", kind of athletic. And Cornette can catch lobs and everything like that. He's very physically gifted. But I feel like there is a path to the NBA for guys who are non-shooting bigs. Look at the big guy Harrelson, from
Hartenstein.
Germany. Hartenstein, sorry, Hartenstein. My apologies. Hartenstein, he's not a big man who shoots threes or anything like that. I feel like there's a blueprint for it though. You have to be in the right situation. You have to get lucky. The only thing about Edey is that he's so dominant on offense. Like, unless he's Yao Minging it up or Wembying it up, coaches, once you give up like 1 or 2 threes in transition, you run back and then you run to the paint as opposed to running to guard Mobley in the corner 3. Coaches are quick to pull your ass out as a big man, So that's what I'm worried about with him. I feel that unless he's able to score in a dominant way every time he touches the ball, if he has 2 or 3, mix-ups or on a drop coverage in a pick and roll, like he's not up enough in the screen. Guys are, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is eating up the mid-range game. Anthony Edwards is eating up the mid-range game. For a while, three-point shooting was like a big thing, which it still is. But at the same time, guys are coming off, Luka's coming off that screen and then putting you in jail and then cross-graining it. And he's looking for that shot in the mid-range. And then if you come up, he's throwing that thing up to Blake Lively for a lob dunk. So You got to be able to move your feet. And I'm making a video right now about my defense and some really bad defense I used to do back in the day. And I'm just like, man, I'm happy I'm done. I'm happy I'm done.
So I want to tie this into two questions just to wrap this all up. First
Yeah,
question is, as you mentioned, we're seeing more mid-range now. We're seeing teams win with size. If you look at what Minnesota are doing, if you look at how
yeah,
Cleveland have built up, and we're kind of moving away from that small ball era. And with that is coming the mid-range. And it feels like the NBA went really far towards this analytic movement based on the
mm,
Warriors. And now we're starting, water's finding its level again. And then the
yeah,
second part is tying this in, your YouTube channel. I just wanted you to kind of really give that a shout out because you're doing a lot of the stuff that the Mind the Game podcast are getting a ton of love for. Rightly
yeah,
so. Obviously, it's LeBron. It's everybody wants to hear pick LeBron's brain. So being able to watch that is fantastic. But you're
yeah.
doing it too, two-time All-Star, all defensive team. So I just wanted you to kind of go through what you've got coming out, what you've done, and what the kind of process is that you're trying to build from that channel.
Well, for like in terms of the mid-range game, I love that things are changing. It's like people, it was big men for a while, and then it was the three-point shooting, and then now it's like the mid-range, and they're doing things with like big guys as well. Wemby is being able to score inside and primarily out. Things are changing. Chet Holmgren is like shooting inside, but he also is going to work on being able to score. So for me, that is great to see like it's coming back around. They always say it's secular or it's in circles. They always do the same thing. But at the same time, I appreciate you reaching out to me about my YouTube channel. I want to do things differently. Most NBA players like to rightfully so, that's what they want to do. Have a channel where they either sit on the couch and just talk, old stories or whatever is going on now. That's fine. But for me, I'm a broadcaster. I transitioned to a broadcaster, and I felt that the way how I break down games for CBS or NBA TV, I feel like there must be a niche for that, and I want to do things my way, where I get tons of views off of talking about a player betting on his game of him coming out in the first 2 minutes or something. I could do that, get some views, but for me, I like the X's and O's. I like to be able to, see. I feel like you can critique players. Film doesn't lie. You can critique players and be objective and everything as opposed to some other stuff. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but I like to keep it basketball. I find this stuff entertaining. I hope to learn. I hope that I learn something from the fans in the comment section, and hope people can learn something from me as well.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm a purist, is the way I like to talk about it. Like I'm all learn from the film. I'm a big believer in. I think that you can go too over the top with analytics, and there's too many of these catch-alls where you need a degree in advanced algebra to really
Yeah,
fully understand. For me, it's I'll look at the numbers and let the numbers tell me where I want to go and watch the film, and then I'll take what I
yeah,
see on the numbers and then make my own decision based on what you see on the film, because that makes the
yeah,
most sense to me. I'm a big fan of everything you're doing, man. It's humbling to be able to have you on the show. As I said, growing up, I think I said this to you. I'm out in the UK. We didn't get much hoops back in the day, but we did used to get
yeah.
the Anthony Anderson show, Hang Time, right, where it's the Pacers.
Okay.
So when I first, and there's a long story of why I'm a Celtics fan, which we don't need to go into. But when I first started playing like NBA Live and stuff, uh,
Yeah.
you were the big man on the Pacers, the young big man. So I used to trade for you from the Pacers and have you on my Celtics team, locking down the paint. So getting a chance to talk to you, that's wild to me. So I appreciate it, man.
I got you, man. I'll do a better job of like getting back to you like a little bit quicker. I got 4 kids under 7, so a lot of times I'll be moving around. But you can make this a thing, man. From time to time, let's just you have me back on. We could talk hoops and everything like that, man.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll get some clips next time if we plan it out. We'll do like a screen share and we'll see
Yeah,
talk about what we see and stuff. Yeah, that sounds dope to me.
yeah.
Awesome. Two,
All right, man.
4 under 7.
4 and 7. Yeah, I got to work.
Oh, I got one at 13, and that's enough, bro. 4 under
Well, all
7
right,
is
man.
wild.
That's what's up, man. So 13 years old or
Yeah,
or
13
13
years
months.
old. She's
Oh
13 years
man,
old.
I can't imagine the social media and the phones and stuff that you probably have to deal with,
Oh
then. So
man, it's wild, dude. And like high school out here, she's in like 8th grade. It's nuts. But yo, thank you so much for your time. 4-7 means you've barely got any time, so I appreciate it.
yeah.
I'll hit you up maybe at the end of the playoffs. Maybe we can do like a Celtics breakdown at the end of the playoffs when we've got the off season to figure it out.
Let me know. Let me know. All right,
Awesome.
brother. You take it easy.
You too, bro. Thank you very much, man.
Thanks. Bye.